Hey guys, I just finished up the installs for the drop guards and the magnet that I showed you, but after I recall now watching the previous video that I made, when I was editing it, the audio was not good. It was clipping a lot. But from what I could tell, I thought you could still hear at least me talking. It was annoying to listen to the clipping, I realized that, but actually, my wife was watching it and listening to it today or last night. I'm not sure which. And she said, "What happened to your audio? It's terrible. I can't even understand you." Well, I guess it was really bad. So I apologize for that. I honestly don't know what happened. I didn't change anything on the phone today, on my recording phone today, and the audio seems to be fine. So I basically thought, since it's not sunny, but it's not raining, and it's okay temperature, I'll just do a little bit of a brief or more of a concise repeat, I guess, of the other day, because the stuff that I talked about I think is important for beginners and some folks who are a little more advanced to understand. Just as a reminder, a quick summary, we were talking about the importance of understanding the clutch and how to use the friction zone when you're slow speed riding. I believe most of my explanation before I got out to the parking lot to practice was pretty clear. I think there was no audio with that, no bad audio with that, so I won't rehash that. Only just to say there's an incredible importance of understanding and beginning to master the balance on the friction zone and the throttle. What I wanted to redo was to show you the exercises, number one, that will help you learn the friction zone and control of it more quickly. The exercises are a little more efficient in focusing on that particular technique. And then there's a couple things maybe one or two things I don't recall, that I wanted to show you where knowing the friction zone and being comfortable with it will actually help you do these things. So the first thing I'll show you is a rehash, basically, a quick rehash of the exercises that will help you learn the friction zone quicker and more efficiently. So the first exercise I showed you was it's an exercise that the Be the Boss of Your Motorcycle channel, the creator of that channel, he created that. He created and trademarked this exercise name called Trust and Believe. And the point of that exercise is probably a lot of folks in the preloader nation know, is to train your brain to keep your feet on the footboards, no matter what, as long as the motorcycle is in motion. But the reason I use that exercise as a way to get more familiar with the friction zone is because the focus of that exercise, well, I should say the additional focus, is feeling that friction zone, knowing where it is, because you want to be right before it. You want your clutch right before the friction zone, and then pick your foot up, and then go into the friction zone slowly. You'll begin to feel it. Example. I'm already in first gear. I was in first gear before, but we'll just make sure. I'm on the rear brake, covering it. Actually, right now, yeah, I was pressing it, but I don't need to. I'm just going to cover it. I'm not rolling. I'm going to preload. I go right before the friction zone. There it is. Now, for me to get familiar with this friction zone, I'm going to push my foot up and let the clutch out slowly and feel that friction zone. There it is. That's my friction zone. What you can do is just sit here, preload, and let the clutch out until you start moving. And I can feel it start moving right there. But the reason I wasn't doing that just a moment ago is because, to me, the whole point of that exercise, I believe, is to keep your feet on the footboards. I keep on saying that. Keep your feet on the footboards. And so keeping this foot down while I'm letting the clutch out kind of ruins that exercise for me. So technically you can just keep your foot down and let it out slowly and feel your motorcycle move. But for me, because I like that exercise and the point of it, I just do the exercise itself and I feel the clutch going in to the friction zone. So here we go. Preload. Let the idle first. Okay, preload. Find the friction zone. There it is. Lift the foot up, There you go. And you see, I went down a little bit further, and that's one way to master your friction zone, to know where it is. To me, the most efficient way of getting used to that friction zone is to do that exercise that I just showed you. If you're not comfortable with doing that exercise, that's fine. It takes a little bit of getting used to do it. It's perfectly fine to keep your feet on the ground and just let out your clutch slowly and rock back and forth and get used to where that friction zone is. I would not recommend getting used to your friction zone. Well, I guess everybody has their own way to do it. For me, I'm very uncomfortable having my feet down and continuing to roll. People can do it, and there's no issue with that per se. Problem with it for me is that sometimes I'm concerned that might retrain my brain to put my feet on the ground instead of the footboards. Obviously, there's times and places to do putting your feet on the ground, like when you're in a tight, you're trying to put your bike in a tight trailer or whatever. So I can't say always that you should never put your feet on the ground. For me though, I try to avoid doing that if I don't have to. So that's why I use that exercise. There is actually another way to master your friction zone. Some people who do slow speed exercise know the exercise called the slow race. And basically the slow race is all about using your friction zone and balancing it with the throttle and a little bit of rear brake to keep yourself upright at a slow pace. But the focus of it is knowing where your friction zone is. Here's my friction zone, and here's my slow race, keeping my throttle loaded, and I'm using my friction zone to keep me going slow. You can do U-turns without the friction zone, but they're going to be a little bit of a wider turn, probably a lot of a wider turn, and I feel like I have less control when I'm doing that. I'll try to do a U-turn without the friction zone, which means a U-turn with the clutch all the way out. U-turn with the clutch all the way out. And I'll go in circles with the clutch all the way out. The problem is, ooh, that feels weird. Yeah, I have to go, basically I have to make wide circles. And that's, I feel out of control with that. Now, here's U-turn and circles with the friction zone. See how much more controlled that is? So I just wanted to do a quick rehash of those couple of exercises of learning the friction zone and how it's so important to use. Hopefully this audio worked out a little better.